Right, 15th.
Make a motion to take it up.
A quick night.
Right.
All righty, all set. We'll put you up first, Dennis. Good evening. Welcome to the September 12th Town of Clifton Park Town Board meeting. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Teresa, if you would call the roll.
Councilwoman Flood. Here. Councilwoman Standard. Here. Councilman Morelli.
Here.
Councilwoman Wallowit. Here. Supervisor Barrett.
Here, the last meeting we tabled the minutes of August 15th.
I moved on table those, Supervisor.
All right.
Second.
Second by Mr. Wallowit. Do you have amendments to those
Yes,
minutes?
I do. And I sent those to everyone.
Yep.
For the page 202, I included, put a strikeout through, and I showed the amended section. I put verbatim the line that was in question, and then I also had a clerk's note that the emails that the attorney submitted will be on the September 6th.
Oh, okay.
Anyone saw those, right?
Okay, well, first we'll vote to take the minutes off the table.
Councilwoman Flood?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Morelli?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wallowit?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes, and entertain a motion to approve based on the amendments distributed by the town clerk.
I would move the amended minutes from August 15th.
Second.
Councilwoman Flood?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Morelli?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wallowit?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes, entertain a motion to approve town board meeting minutes of September 6th.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Teresa?
Councilwoman Flood?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Morelli?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wallowit?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes. All right, so communications and announcements. We have one of our bigger events of the year coming up this weekend. There's been a lot of talk about it, a lot of buzz on the street. Some things that didn't happen the last couple of years due to COVID are back in our game plan and with our partner organization, so that's great to see. Anything that, any updates, Mike, or is everything looking the same and looking good?
I think we're looking good. We're all set. No changes that we know of.
Okay.
I just have one, in the brochure is correct, but there's a lot of old information going around about the Historic Grooms Tavern, the tag sale that they're having. I think when they put it on their Friends of Groom Tavern website or whatever, I think their times were different. So I just want to make people aware that in the brochure it's correct, it's Saturday 10 to 4, Sunday 10 to 3, where they're having their tag sale at the tavern.
Okay.
Thanks.
Those are the correct times?
Yes. The ones that are in the
Those
brochure.
are the times in the brochure?
Yeah, this is correct.
Yeah.
But the stuff floating around on some of the Facebook stuff is not.
All right, well, hopefully people grab the very handy marketing materials or check out the website and join us this weekend. Should be a good time. Any other communications and announcements? All right, first up, we have a presentation by SEDC President Dennis Brobston. And Dennis and SEDC were chosen by Saratoga County to perform a infrastructure resiliency report for Saratoga County. I was asked to chair the committee, and I'll let Dennis kind of go through the details of the report, which is available on the county website. We'll make it available on the town website as well if it isn't already. But very important beginning to this process. So Dennis, if you could.
Thank you, Phil. The Capital District Regional Planning Commission received a grant from the federal government after COVID to evaluate public infrastructure resiliency. And it could take a lot of different tacks, and other communities, other counties did different things. But we talked about it from the perspective of, and the focus from the county was to talk about it from a business perspective. And that's why economic development and SCDC was asked to participate. Each county received $50,000, and then CDRPC had $200,000 that they could spend on something more regional. So that's how this all got started. And our big issue was looking at, because of COVID, what exactly happened during service reductions in electric, gas, water, what happened? And as I said on the second page here, our deliverables were really a deeper understanding of risks and their potential impacts by business sector. And we've done a study on that. We leveraged the recent county hazard and emergency plans. But it's interesting to know that the county plans were really about service to the residents. So, which was fine, but business was at the bottom of the list because they thought, well, not that they thought they'd take care of themselves, but it was, how do we take care of health situation of our residents? What do we need to do with respect to other services that they may require during either a disaster or a flood, those kind of things, and then business was last. In this case, what we did was really focus on the top piece, which was the business and how that affected their ability to make money and invest in the community and hire people, which then keeps everybody moving along. So our deliverables really was the assessment report, which I did give you a copy of, and as the supervisor said, we get that on the website, and that information will hopefully be updated each year. But our big issue was getting done by a date of June 30th, and with COVID, it was very hard to get everybody to meet. And Zoom is a wonderful thing, but it didn't always work as easily as we'd hoped. But we did come through, and we did finish it right before June 30th. And that was a federal date that was required. And I would like to tell you that we did do it under budget, on time and under budget. So we were real pleased with that. But if you go to page 3, our infrastructure scope, the big issue here was the categorization of infrastructure. Everybody's got an opinion on how you do that. I look over at the table and I see Mr. O'Brien and his the sewer issue that he has, his wonderful work that he does. What does that mean when you got a break? Well, he can tell you verbatim what that means, but what he may not realize is how many other people, how many businesses affects downline, kind of money that they could lose, and sending people home, and people could lose their pay for a day, an hour, whatever they may be gone. So we went through the infrastructure categories, and as you can see, electricity, renewables, and power, plants, natural gas, water, sewer, communications, which includes cell and landline, internet or cable, depending on what you use it for, transportation of vehicles, and transportation of trains. And we also went through a discussion about the scope for each one, and the risk materiality is really, we were looking at it from a perspective of something that was down around a week. So we're talking major disaster here. We're not talking somebody hit a pole and knocked out, something for a couple hours. Well, what the conversation actually went to were those exact issues of the 1 and 2 hour to 3 hour breaks in service because of accidents that happen, or a nice squirrel chewing a wire and knocking out somebody. During COVID, there was one exact instance that we could talk about now was the oncology center on Sitterly and Clifton Country Road. There was an outage. That's in NYSEG territory. There was an outage there, and it made them close for the whole day. They just could not. NYSEG was not able to get that up and running. Everybody had to go home. The revenue they lost was significant, in the tens of thousands of dollars. So that was just one day in one place, and that's the kind of money that we're talking about. So that's how we got into the discussions. And when we talked to National Grid or NYSEG, our sewer departments, our water departments, they would say we have to get everything back on within hours. it's nice to talk about if it's, what do we have to do for a week, but we need to get back in hours. That's the way they look at it. So it was very enlightening to understand their kind of emergency service opportunities and how they got to where they were with their plan. So our focus then, if you turn to the next page, was personal resilience relies on economic continuity for employment, services, food, supplies, housing, health and safety, education, and transportation. All those things make us go to work every day, or help us go to work every day, or help us promote our positions, our workforce, or even our services that we give out. And the town has the same issue. If the lights are out, I mean, there were times in the past, many years ago, when electric went out, we didn't have generators at important intersections. They just were off for a while. And if you had sheriff or the state police or somebody there directing, that might be helpful. But over the years, money was invested in that to make it more resilient during those issues. And that's how we got into this discussion of what's next and what's more important for people. So the risks do vary by sector. If you go to page 5, this is where it really starts breaking down into infrastructure categories and how they perceive the impact of infrastructure to their business. So the first category is really the description of the company or service, manufacturing, government, nonprofit. You can see the list there. You can see that we go across then the utilities for electricity. All the different risk areas that we had on the first sheet went across the top here. And we just also wanted to show you that when you look at each category, there's a number of employees and there's a number of that comes from the gross regional product, the money that's being generated by that. And that's in the second to last column, and then the last column is the number of employees that are impacted. So when you look at manufacturing, which is the easiest one to look at, you can see our gross regional product in Saratoga County is over $2 billion. So if you shut down for a day, 2 days or whatever, it really impacts that. But it also impacts 8,248 people in manufacturing. So if there's a big power outage that took off the county, that's the kind of impact you can have. You can start getting the feeling for the loss that has taken place. And that's how we started going down the list. If you look at government and nonprofit utilities, electricity, very high to them. Everything you do is by electric. You have to have it. What do we do if we can't have a meeting anymore without power in this building, right? What do? You have to speak louder because we don't have it. So those are the kind of things that they're looking at. But in the renewable utilities, not a big impact. If they're having this outage, it's not affecting us. But natural gas could if it was a winter, but medium risk. All of these types of things go down, and it shows each breakdown for the companies and what their concerns were. And this is the first time that we've seen a study doing this, and we not only met with all the utility players, we also met with the businesses. We went out to see them and talked about these strategies and the issues that they saw and how it affected them. So our observations from the research and interviews in the next page really explains what I just said. We went out to see everybody, as many of you could, talk to the community, talk to our utility people. Mike and I had a couple conversations. Definitely we had it down at Dan Work on sewer. The water authority for the county was very impactful in their message that they had for us. And it's all about capacity building, because if you don't have enough capacity, as we continue to build homes, as we continue to build commercial buildings, planning board issues are, is there enough electricity, is there enough sewer, is there enough water? All those things taking place, and they happen all the time. In natural gas, which is something that's been a big discussion lately because of climate change and fossil fuels, we've seen that the background growth of residential growth in our county has created 1 to 2% growth each year of usage. Doesn't sound like that much, but if you take 10 years, now you've got 10 to 20% more capacity lost or being used. So you have to figure out what kind of growth you can go from there and how does it get managed. And when each town has their own planning boards and their own issues that they're dealing with, they don't always talk to each other until you get to a point. That's why National Grid, or that's why the service industry, people that are having the infrastructure and groundwater sewer, that's why they need to talk. And one of the first things we did, we had a meeting in June at the Senior Center a couple years ago before COVID, and we sat down and really talked about the strategies of getting to know each other. And there were two people from National Grid that said to me, I've never met these guys. It's like, well, what do you mean you never met them? You work with them? Yeah, I work with their people, but I've never met them. I didn't know I could call Lori Poltinsky from National Grid and say, Lori, I got an issue. I can't figure this out. What do I do? So it really was then getting them addresses and getting just emails. Those are the kind of things that you think happen every day, and you expect networking and things to happen. Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. So what we decided to do is at least twice a year have these kind of meetings that can meet to talk again, just to renew acquaintances and make sure everybody is in good shape to figure out where we're going from here. On page 7, we also then reviewed the projects that were prioritized by all those infrastructure companies and services, and recent and current improvements, resiliency areas of focus for the first 1 to 5 years after COVID, and then capacity building opportunities for the future. And those kind of capacity building for the future is what, when you talk about strategic planning or comprehensive planning for your communities, that's where that can fall into place. But for the everyday things, there's ongoing work being done every day in all of these different areas, and it just happens. And you might see a bridge coming across, Sibley Road. We've seen that in action and saw how quickly that got done, all those different things. But you saw the impact it had when it wasn't there. So those kind of strategies and thought processes get built into infrastructure for transportation. You look out and go and see what bridge, and DOT goes out and ranks bridges. There's a bridge at exit 16 in Wilton that's at Ballard Road, which Easton, Target, Hart, the big warehouses are up there. There's over 1,000 trucks a day that goes over that thing. And it's 2 lanes, and that's it. And that bridge needs to be built larger. The problem is it doesn't fit DOT's criteria for that. And it's a $30 million, it could be up to a $30 million project with the other things that have to happen. So when you talk about the kind of projects that we need to be reviewed and prioritized, that's where Supervisor Lant and Saratoga County Planning went down to CDTC, the Transportation Committee, and talked about getting that on the tip, because the growth that could take place up there would generate more dollars, which would then pay more taxes, which would then pay for that. And that's how we get from A to B. That's really the discussion, is how it was supposed to happen. And we also created infrastructure maps on page 8 that show you where electric lines are, where water and sewer are. These were all in different places along the line on the internet. Different organizations have different ways of producing that. We put it all together in one area map to make it a little bit easier. There are also some things that you're not going to see on here because of national security issues or just general security issues. So you can run down the street and you can see where the lines go, but not everyone shows up on the map for some of those reasons. The report, if you go to page 9, was completed on June 30th. And the table of contents is shown here. You have one. I would say that the resilience focus areas were the biggest discussion when it came to enlightening everybody on both sides of the table, elected officials, people in agencies like SEDC and others, like CDTA even, and CDTC, CDRPC, every acronym you could think of. That's just the way it is, right? But getting together and having that discussion really helped. And the findings that really came out of this is that people need to meet regularly and need to take the time to do that to make sure that things are happening. And you would think, as I said earlier, you would think that just happens. It does not. There has to be a reason. So SEDC and the county planning more than likely will be that instigation, be the instigator to do that, to get everybody together twice a year. But it also means that you can learn what they're doing and their best practices. There are other organizations that are happening, getting things. The county water system, the Clifton Park Water Authority. What's happening with that and how are they being managed? Where are the new towers going to be at? In Global Foundries, they're going to put up another, County Water Authority is going to put up another 5 million gallon tank. There's already a 5 million there. And Global put 2 5 millions up. Well, that's a lot of water, but they need it for capacity, because if you have a break on the line somewhere, and it's now 10 years old, that's an issue where they can't run. And there was a time that you could have an accident on Broadway in Albany, and you could a car would hit a pole and knock something out, and it registered on the meters at Global Foundries, because that's the kind of impact taking power away from it. If it's one cycle, it makes a difference. They lost $70 million worth of product in the last 3 power outages that happened. And $70 million, what is that? It's wafers that then have to start over because they shut down and they can't go back and restart. So it's a tremendous, and that's just one industry. And that naturally gets the biggest play because it's the biggest dollars. But if your power's out and you can't freeze anything at Price Chopper, they're losing freezer time, right? So all these things come about, and that's how we got to our report. It is something that once if you take the time to read it, if you have any questions on how it relates to business, our business people we met with from restaurants, service engineers, car dealers, all kinds of folks. We found out things we didn't really know was happening. Electric vehicles, we all hear about that. Mangino's spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to be able to have 2 high and fast chargers and 2 regular slow trickle charge because they had to get National Grid to bring in enough power to do it. And GM said, if you don't have that, we can't let you sell EVs. So they spent over a couple $100,000 just to be in the game. So those are the kind of impacts that we don't really see, but those are the kind of issues that we're having. And one of the pieces of this report at the end of it, I want to make sure I mention, is something that the supervisors really felt were important, and I know Phil felt strong about it, was the energy risk considerations, talking about the new CPA, which is the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act that New York State passed, which tells us that by 2030, we can't put any more natural gas in residences being built. All those kind of things. And I understand the reasonings behind it, but what wasn't being said was, what does that ultimately cost you? So if we can't have a furnace that runs on natural gas, and I have to have an electric, whatever, whether it's a heat pump, or what does that cost? How much does it cost for the usage? But also, if you have to get fit up, if I can't buy another electric furnace, or if I can't buy another natural gas furnace in New York State when mine goes out, then I have to get a new heat pump. One of our friends from National Grid sat down and told us that the cost to retrofit her house in Queensbury was $38,000. That did not include the equipment. That was just a retrofit from natural gas to a heat pump. Because the heat pump, as of today's technology, has very difficult time running below freezing. So that's when the electric strip comes on and they can't do it, and they pump it in and it rolls around. So those are a lot of technology issues that we're going to run with, that we're going to have to experience. California has done some of the same things, and they've had rolling blackouts. So it's a cost of doing business, not only for the cost of saving the environment, but it's also the cost of what it means to the people that are here and how we manage the change. And that's something that these discussions really do help better solidify the understanding for those businesses. Because there's regulations being thrust on all of us that we don't quite understand. What does it mean? What do you mean I can't put a natural gas furnace in? What does that mean? So not everybody understands it. What they do understand is the 39% increase that National Grid's talking about heating is going to be this year. And is that being caused by some of these rules that are happening? Yes, they are, but it's hard to meet all that out when you're in the midst of the crisis. So we're trying to get things to happen before the crisis. And the county had great management mitigation plans and all those kind of things anyways, but it just gave the business side of the story. And that's how we got here. I know that's a lot in a very short period of time, but if you do have the opportunity and the interest to look through that, if you have any questions, you want to be part of the support as we go down the line, and understand what our water authority or sewer authority are doing, you can let us know.
Thank you, Dennis. I appreciate that rundown, and I think going through the process, I think it was important to have everyone in the same place. We have all the local utilities, the county leaders responsible for various forms of infrastructure, and other important parties at the table. Having those discussions, strengthening partnerships, increasing communication, identifying priorities and future needs in general. generally just future needs in the future. And how the energy policies of today and the future are going to affect our pocketbooks as businesses and residences, how it's going to affect the grid itself, how the grid is going to evolve to a point that it will be able to handle this very quick move to all electric. Those are the types of things that we've begun to lay out in this report. And I will certainly continue this initiative to make sure that we're having regular meetings with all those same parties. And updating this report is necessary. I think it's important that SEDC remain a partner in that endeavor as we go forward. But yeah, there's a lot of concerning challenges in the near future. It's not far down the road. These very aggressive goals that have been announced and approved by states like California, New York, and others are right around the corner. And as residents and businesses and organizations like the town, if we're not prepared for this drastic change, we will be in trouble. And I think it will come to a surprise to a lot of folks. So anything that we can do to get the word out and help them prepare ahead of time is a useful service that we can provide as a public entity. As chair of Public Works for the county, I'm also a board member of the Saratoga County Water Authority. Obviously, work very close with the Clifton Park Water Authority. I see the infrastructure needs from various angles, and I think some were in better position than others. We are doing an aggressive expansion of the county water system. The Clifton Park Water Authority has increased its purchasing of water from the county system, in addition to our own sources that we have here in town. And that put us in a tremendous position this year. And there were other municipalities that were in tough shape and instituting more drastic measures to curb water use. We didn't have those issues, and that's been a long time coming. It's been many years of hard work and investment and strategic planning to get to this point, but we've been in very good shape the last several years, and this past year just really in tremendous shape at this point. So we're going to continue this process. This is just the beginning, and I'll continue to work with SEDC, although I must congratulate you on your retirement. I might not be working with you on this anymore, and a myriad of other things, but tell us a little bit about that. You just made that announcement.
I did. It's time for me to move on and do something else, and I'm not retiring. I plan on working. I would like to work less. Wouldn't we all? Wouldn't we all?
Yes.
Yeah. But we've done. My wife's sitting over going, gonna be home. Great. No, it's just been a long road, and we've done a lot of good things, and we've been very successful because we've had a lot of planning, a lot of people that do good work, and I'm hopeful. I expect the next person to be able to do the same or better. That's just what we do, Saratoga County. This is the best place to market in upstate New York, and we're successful because we try new things. We're not afraid of going out there. We're not afraid to tell people no, that there's a better way to do it. And I think that is something that we all should be proud of as residents. The more I see it in some of the projects we've done, some of the tougher projects, they're not making any more land, and it's getting a little harder to do projects. So we're going to be in more rehabilitation projects and more of those kind of things, just because all the easy stuff's been done. And the cost of doing business when you're doing a development today is staggering compared to what it was 10 years ago. And I mean that from the perspective of different things that come down through the building codes and things like that need to be done. But you have to build it into the cost. And when I started in SEDC, you could rent a place on 4 and 32 Hudson River Road for $1.25 a square foot. Today, you can't touch that down there for less than $7. Now, it doesn't sound like a huge difference, and it's 20-some years ago, but it is on the bottom line for the companies. And it's just the way it is. And new places, you can't get for less than $9.50, $10. And they're pretty normal, regular type of things. So the costs are going up. You know, I have 5 towns that I can promote to companies that don't have a town tax. You know, people look at us and go, there's no town tax? No, there's no town tax. You don't have to worry about that. And they can't believe it because they've been around other places in the Northeast. And it's not like that. So as long as we can keep those things up for as long as possible, sales tax has been king here forever, and long live the king sales tax. But thank you. We've had a good run.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to disappear. I'm just going to find something else to do.
Well, that's good. We're glad you're not going to disappear. It's been a pleasure working with you. It was very gratifying to bring SCDC back in the fold with a professional services contract with the county in recent years, something that was lacking for several years for reasons we won't get into tonight. But it's certainly out there for anybody that cares to pay attention. But that whole process has worked out, I think, for the best. And appreciated your partnership on that, many other things. We wish you all the best of luck in your next endeavor, but you're not, you're still going to be around to the end of the year.
Oh, yeah, I'm not leaving until the end of the year.
Right.
Dennis, can I just ask one question?
Sure.
For the education sector, did you consult like superintendents or like?
We did. We had a couple different things we did there. I'm trying to think of who the superintendents were. It slipped my mind. I think one was Stillwater, one was Saratoga Springs, also Empire State College, Hudson Valley, and SUNY Adirondack, who also have places here. So we did talk about those things, and they have some great plans themselves. They spent a lot of time and energy doing that, and it was more of there's a lot of unknown. If just anything can happen, as we know when watching the news. So it is good to know that these people paid attention to those priorities. And we didn't get into too much of it here. We just wanted people to understand that when you impact education because of a downfall of an infrastructure, you can see how many people it affects. And we were only going to the people that were the people that get paid, and those, not even talking about the loss of education to the kids. That's a hard thing to quantify. But we've seen since COVID that some kids have been home or doing stuff at home is not as interactive. It's not as interactive for them, and that they don't learn as much. But from our perspective, it was they don't have electric, they don't have gas, those kind of things, and that's where that number came from.
Thanks.
Sure.
Yeah, and HVCC. Oh, I'm sorry. And, HVCC continues to be a great partner with the county.
Absolutely.
We recently partnered on their expansion in Malta.
Yes.
With the new facility, they've been an important partner with our free EMT class.
Yeah.
Which was a pilot program for Clifton Park, and working with Shen and the students at Shen, which will be taken countywide next year. So they've been a great partner. Councilwoman Wall?
Yes, you mentioned that you were going to continue to update, and I was wondering, you're going to continue to have meetings and have the important people that need to be contacted, updated, and can probably keep that online, but we need to keep that. I think as I think back on the blizzard of whatever, that first hour, when you have to know who to call at night, say at night, break, and transportation and red truck and everything, and if you get the fire chiefs, if it change,
That's right.
So I think it's really important that be done on a regular basis and kept with the supervisors and town officials, so that we will know exactly who to go to get this information immediately.
And that's why, and we sent this out to our SCDC, the membership organization, so the companies that are members, we sent all this out to them and did 2 presentations during the last couple months, I should say, just to get them familiar with it. Because some of them said, so if I have something like that, who do I call? Or where would you call? And you say, well, I don't know, the governor's office? Why would you call the governor's office? That has nothing to do with what you hear. It's all local. So what does local mean to you? And they say, well, I guess it depends on what occurred. Well, if you got a water leak, you call the water department. If you got a sewage leak, you call the sewer department. If you got electric, national, or whatever. But when you have we'll call it a disaster, which kind of snowball can shut things down for a while, it does.
That goes.
And then it's all the social services things that have to happen.
Mhm.
So if and that's how we got into the business aspect of it. So if you can't get the price sharper, get your food, because you got a problem. How do you get that to them? And that's where the emergency management plan at the county, emergency services, Carl and his team, they do a lot of things working with all these other agencies, and they work with other businesses. What we found is our business people here just were assuming it was going to happen and someone would tell them. And now they have to take ownership for themselves. So we were trying to get the message out that this is what you look at this, see what your issues are, and prepare ahead of time to call somebody. And who is that? You're absolutely right. And I think when you're working every day doing it, I keep using Mike as an example sitting over there. But when he's got electric, he's got a pump station that doesn't have electric, and he's got stuff backing up.
Yeah.
He's got to get somebody there to fix it. And he'll do everything he can. But the guy from National Grid or NYSEG needs to be there. And if they're running late because something or whatever, there's big issues and environmental issues that can happen with his particular business. But not everybody knows the question, knows where to go. And we were just trying to show them, and we continue to do that, acknowledging that, and trying to get them to. Businesses need to be more involved with those kind of things anyways. But they're so busy running their business, it's hard to take the extra hour. So if we can, I think Zoom has helped us a lot during all this, because we now get there, they don't have to leave, we can do it at lunch. They can be sitting there eating a lunch, they can listen, they can learn more. So it has helped us a lot with that, and that's how we really presented this. So, good. Okay, thank you, folks.
Just, Dennis, did this get rolled up to the state level? I mean, do you have insight as to where our resiliency as a county stacks up against other counties similarly?
The other counties, because they didn't do the same exact thing, very hard to determine that. Capital District Regional Planning Commission, CDRPC, was going to look at that and compare them and to talk about, because I think there'll be another program. So next steps, what was really well done by the money that went out there. Okay, we'd like to think that ours it's a good study and it was well thought out, though it needs more work because it always does. But if everybody did it something like that, then you can start communicating across lines. And I don't know, Phil probably knows better than anybody here, just because of the county connection being up there. I don't know how we interact with Schenectady, Warren, Washington, all these counties that abut us in a case of emergency. I'm sure there's a process, but we never got into that for this. And so I don't know how the state does. I do know that when there's big issues on DOT, roads and things of that nature, whether it's a storm or just like that one time that Northway got flooded and up in the exit 24 and took out. There are some really great and sophisticated processes and technology to help with that. But it's something that we don't usually get shared with. I know Carl and his team up the county does. Our 911 and our disaster place, like, where everybody goes if there's a big deal and they've got everybody around, that is bar none the best in the state and has won awards for it. And it's still not big enough. It just goes to show you that no matter how much technology you have, you need a lot of space to do things, and people. It's all about people.
Yep.
I've talked too much.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. Thank you very much, and so we'll continue to work with you through the end of the year.
Yes, sir.
All right, and thanks for coming here tonight, I appreciate it.
You're very well.
All right, Teresa, we have several resolutions for consideration.
A resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign outside user agreements for properties within the first phase of the Miller Road residential subdivision to provide service from the Corporate Commerce Sewer District. Whereas the town board, as commissioners of Corporate Commerce Sewer District Number 1, has received a request to extend service to 47 residential lots out of 79 lots approved for subdivision by the planning board on December 11, 2018. And whereas the real property is located outside the current service area of the Corporate Commerce Sewer District and requires an outside user agreement for services consistent with notice to the developer dated April 17, 2018. And whereas the sewer department has determined that sufficient capacities exist within the Corporate Commerce Sewer District to provide service to the properties. And whereas the Corporate Commerce Sewer District was established pursuant to the Met Plan and Report, prepared by McDonald Engineering as revised in February of 2003. And whereas some lots within the subdivision have been conveyed to buyers who have signed the agreements, while the agreement has been signed by developer Bella Homes for all remaining lots pending sale to homeowners. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board, as commissioners of Corporate Commerce Sewer District Number 1, hereby approves an outside user connection to the district facilities for properties located within the Miller Road residential subdivision on Tisdale Lane and Bismarck Lane, also known as lots EX 27, 28, 30, 37, 45, and 46, and consecutive lots C1 through C44 inclusive, as more particularly described in the attached map and description by Gilbert Van Gilder, land surveyor, as dated March 16, 2022, as revised. And be it further resolved that the outside user agreement shall be assigned to all the residents to be built on the described property under the terms of the agreement and connected to the Corporate Commerce Sewer District facilities. And be it further resolved that the outside user agreements for each property on the final subdivision stamped plan shall be uploaded to the final to the file maintained in the parcel management database. And be it further resolved that the applicable hookup fee of $1,000 per home will be due to and payable to the town upon application for building permits for each lot. A resolution appointing a hearing officer pursuant to Civil Service Section 75, whereas on April 27, 2022, the supervisor served a notice of discipline upon a town employee alleging incompetence arising from the neglect of job duties. And whereas on May 5th, 2022, the employee so noticed served an answer through counsel demanding a hearing on the charges. And whereas the supervisor has referred the charges and the employee's demand for a hearing to the town board for action. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to Section 75 of the New York State Civil Service Law, the board hereby appoints Carolyn George Cooper Irving as hearing officer to conduct a full hearing on the disciplinary charges, to make a record and to make recommendations to the board for disposition on the charges so made. A resolution authorizing town historian John Shearer to attend the Association of Public Historians of New York State Annual Conference. Whereas procurement policy number 10 states that all requests to attend classes, seminars, or professional conferences involving overnight stays must be approved by the town board. And whereas Councilwoman Flood, town board liaison to the Historic Preservation Commission, recommends the town historian John Shearer be authorized to attend the Association of Public Historians Conference in Kingston, New York, September 19th to the 21st at a cost not to exceed $675. And whereas John Shearer's attendance at the Association of Public Historians Conference would confer a benefit to the town. And whereas Councilwoman Flood recommends that John Shearer also be allowed to attend the annual association board meeting held one day earlier on September 18th, 2022. Now therefore be it resolved that John Shearer is authorized to attend the Association of Public Historians Conference in Kingston, New York, September 18th to the 21st, 2022, at a cost not to exceed $675, including registration, meals, lodging, and transportation to be paid from budget historian training conferences. A resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign a lease agreement with DeLange Landon's Financial Services Incorporated through Electronic Business Products for a digital copying system for use by the town courts. Whereas Town Justice Ryback has requested that a new digital printer, copier, scanner be leased for use by the Justice Court, and whereas the proposed cost for leasing the copier has been budgeted for the attached schedule, and whereas quotes were received with Electronic Business Products submitting the lowest quote of $143.24 per month for 60 months, and whereas the town board finds that the use of installment purchase contract to finance the digital copying system is a cost-effective method of acquisition and is authorized by General Municipal Law Section 109B. Now therefore be it resolved that the town supervisor is authorized to enter into a lease agreement with DeLange Langdon Financial Services through Electronic Business Products for a Lanier IMC 3500 digital printer, copier, scanner system with print, scan, fax modules for 60 months at a cost not to exceed $143.24 per month, plus .0082 for black and white copies and .054 for color copies to be paid from Justice Court's contractual lease and rentals. A resolution authorizing the purchase of a Bobcat utility vehicle for the Buildings and Grounds Department from Clark Equipment Company under New York State Contract PC 69396. Whereas Director of Buildings, Parks, and Recreation Daniel Clements has requested authorization for the purchase of a utility vehicle for the Buildings and Grounds Department per the attached. And whereas the equipment is available under New York State Contract PC 69396 in an amount not to exceed $20,824.60. And whereas Mr. Clements has recommended that the gas-powered four-wheel drive utility vehicle be purchased to best meet the needs of the department. And whereas the equipment is available from Clark Equipment Company, DBA, Bobcat Company, Government Sales, West Fargo, North Dakota, now therefore be it resolved that the Buildings and Grounds Department is authorized to purchase one Bobcat UV34 per the attached, and be it further resolved that the town board hereby authorizes the purchase under state contract PC 69396 in an amount not to exceed $20,824.60 to be paid with funds from Parks Trails Equipment. Resolution authorizing the purchase of an equipment trailer for the Department of Buildings and Grounds. Whereas Daniel Clements, Director of Buildings, Parks, and Recreation, requested authorization to purchase an equipment trailer, and whereas Outdoor Motor Sports and Trailer Sales, 3953 State Highway 30, Amsterdam, New York, provided the lowest responsive quote for the trailer per the attached quote at a total cost not to exceed $9,999. And whereas Mr. Clements has recommended the equipment be purchased from Outdoor Motorsports and Trailer Sales, now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby authorizes the Director of Buildings, Parks, and Recreation to purchase a 2023 Big Tex 140A trailer from Outdoor Motorsports and Trailer Sales, Amsterdam, New York, in an amount not to exceed $9,999 from Buildings and Grounds Equipment. A resolution authorizing an agreement for the replacement of the HVAC fan coil at Town Hall by Postler and Jackal Corporation. Whereas the Director of Buildings, Parks, Recreation, Daniel Clements, requested quotes for the replacement of one fan coil unit and for the HVAC system at the #1 Town Hall Plaza. Whereas two quotes were received by September 6, 2022, and whereas Postler and Jackal Corporation Mechanical Contractors, 9 Cray Boulevard, Rensselaer, New York, submitted the lowest conforming quote for the contract for a fan coil unit in the amount of $5,903. And whereas Mr. Clements recommends the project be completed by Postler and Jackal as lowest quote. Now therefore be it resolved, the Director of Buildings, Parks, and Recreation is authorized to sign an agreement for the project in an amount not to exceed $5,903 to be paid from Town Hall Operations, Repair, and Maintenance. A resolution awarding the construction contract for paving of certain trails in the Oaks and Mill Creek subdivisions pursuant to competitive bid. Whereas Daniel Clements, Director of Buildings, Parks, and Recreation, published bid specifications and solicited sealed bids for a project consisting of cleaning, repair, preparation, and asphalt overlay of 3 sections of multi-use trails in the Oaks and Mill Creek subdivisions. And whereas after a bid opening on September 2nd, 2022, Mr. Clements recommends that the construction contract be awarded to Best Paving and Seal Coating as low bidder at a total cost not to exceed $91,800, including area #1, #2, and #3 per the attached. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board accepts the recommendations of the Director of the Buildings, Parks, and Recreation, and hereby awards the construction contract for the trail paving project to Best Paving and Seal Coating pursuant to General Municipal Law, Section 103, at a total cost not to exceed $91,800, and be it further resolved that the comptroller is authorized to transfer funds from unassigned fund balance to the Parks, Trails, and Equipment.
Very good, thank you. Any questions on the resolutions? All right, Teresa, if you could read the headings, and we'll consider each resolution individually.
Resolution number 231 of 2022, a resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign outside user agreements for properties within the first phase of the Miller Road residential subdivision to provide service from the Corporate Commerce Sewer District.
So moved. Second.
Mr. O'Brien, how are you?
Good. This is just a housekeeping item. Bella Homes has been busy out there in their new subdivision, and they've paid, I believe, $20,000 in hookup fees to have 20 lots ready to go. And we're just catching up on the outside user agreement. Essentially brings them into the fold as things evolve out there. They'll be they're agreeing to participate in whatever happens in the future, you know, whether we expand the district or, you know, there's some kind of bond or something out there. It just gets everybody in line. And all those, basically Sterling Heights West is on corporate commerce, so. And that's it.
Okay. Anything to add, Tom?
No.
All right, very good. Further discussion? Okay, Teresa?
Councilwoman Flood?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Morelli?
Yes,
Councilwoman Wallowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 232 of 2022, a resolution appointing a hearing officer pursuant to Civil Service Section 75.
so moved.
Second.
Okay, self-explanatory, this resolution came before the board earlier this year. It was not successful, but it's being brought back tonight. Discussion.
Yeah, I just have a question. So since this was first introduced to us back in June, I did vote against it because I wasn't clear on the Section 75 request made by the employee was for 2 notices of discipline, and this resolution and the hiring of this hearing officer is for just 1 notice of discipline. So that was a little concerning for me. Did my due diligence, and I realized that this would give the employee their due process. So I do support this at this time, but my question is that, well, not question, but when the second notice of discipline request comes up, is there a reason why we're not consolidating it now, just to be more efficient? Because this is an expensive process, or do they need to be kept separate?
I think they need to be kept separate because they are 2 completely different cases, 2 completely different factual scenarios, different witnesses. This one is the more substantive. This is the one that affects town hall and the town hall departments. So the procedure, you know, this will require, you know, several different witnesses. And I just don't see any way to try the 2 cases together.
So when this hearing officer is done with this particular situation, then we will be going through this process again for the second notice of discipline?
Presumably, yeah. I mean, there's always there's always the potential that these things can be resolved. And there's potential that the second one can be resolved after the first one is handled. Potential that this one can be resolved, you know, up to before during the hearing as well. So perhaps we could have a global solution to all the issues surrounding this particular employee.
Okay, thank you.
And I would add, my understanding of the second NOD is that 1 board member is allegedly involved and 1 board member is allegedly a witness. So
That's true too.
taking action on anything from the second NOD wouldn't have 5 board members available to vote on.
That's true too. That's true too. I had actually forgot that part, but that is true.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, Teresa?
Councilwoman Flood?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Morelli?
Yes,
Councilwoman Wallowitz?
Yes, that's okay.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 233 of 2022, a resolution authorizing town historian John Shearer to attend the Association of Public Historians of New York State Annual Conference.
Second.
All right, this is a normal conference that John attends on behalf of the town.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, this one is in Kingston, and John wanted to be here, but couldn't be here, and he wanted us to remind us that New York State, that was New York State's first capital, Kingston, New York. This conference every year draws more than 100 government-approved historians from across the state. And this year, the theme is expanding the narrative, and shedding light on some of the lesser known people and events that have shaped our state's past. So he's very excited to go, and he thanks you for your support.
I spent some time in Kingston here and there when Philip was playing on a semi-pro soccer team down there. There was a lot of tremendous history right there in the center of the town. It is a very interesting place. So, good place to have the annual conference, I guess. All right, Teresa?
Councilwoman Flood?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Morelli?
Yes.
And Councilwoman Wallowitz?
Yeah.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 234, 2022, a resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign a lease agreement with DeLang Landon Financial Services Incorporated through Electronic Business Products for a digital copying system for use by the town courts.
Second.
Okay. Teresa?
Councilwoman Flood?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Morelli?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wallowitz? Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 235 of 2022, a resolution authorizing the purchase of Bobcat utility vehicle for the Buildings and Grounds Department from Clark Equipment Company under New York State Contract PC 69396.
Second.
All right, Mr. Clemens?
Yeah, so as everybody here knows, we have miles and miles of trails that are not improved. Let's say they're not paved, they're not stoned, they're nature trails. And when we get trees down or issues like that out there, the only way to get to them is using a four-wheel drive utility vehicle. We have one that's over 15 years old right now, and it's pretty much worn out. So this is to replace that. And Bobcat, it's a nice brand of equipment, and you can do a lot of other attachments down the road. Once we have this here, I'm sure we'll be able to figure out some other things. Snow removal equipment, and there's probably 30 different attachments that you can use with this vehicle. So it will be very versatile, and wind blows and trees come down and things happen, floods, bridges, all kinds of stuff. So it's used all the time.
Yeah, definitely. All right, and the fence replacement project's coming along on the common.
It's
Not as quickly as we maybe would like, but it's,
Well, it seems to be like.
nothing's ever as quickly as we would like.
It's been as dry as summer as you can imagine. As soon as a couple of these projects started, it's rained every single day or every other day and slowed them right down. But yeah, they're out there, they're plugging away on it. It is a really, really nice fence.
Yeah, it looks great.
The parking lot looks great as well.
That was another one, a lot of rain kind of moving that schedule around, but it is done.
Yeah, they did a nice job, so. All right, next up.
Councilwoman Flood?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Morelli?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wallowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 236 of 2022, a resolution authorizing the purchase of an equipment trailer for the Department of Buildings and Grounds.
Second.
Dan?
Yeah, this is a 24-foot heavy-duty equipment trailer. The difference in this and some of the other ones we have, it's an over-the-axle trailer, so there's no wheel wells. So you can fit some wider equipment, particularly some of our larger mowers will not fit on the trailers that we have because the decks won't go in between the wheel wells. So this doesn't have wheel wells. The deck is up and over top of them, so we can get them up on there and transport it ourselves.
Good. All right, any questions for Dan? All right, Teresa?
Councilwoman Flood?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Morelli?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wallowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 237 of 2022, a resolution authorizing agreement for the replacement of the HVAC fan coil at Town Hall by Hostler and Jekyll Corporation.
So moved.
All right, Dan, once again?
So the heating and air conditioning in the town hall building we're in is hot water, cold water, and it circulates around. So a fan coil unit are all the little boxes that you might have in your office. So the water, when it's hot or cold, circulates through. Fan blows it across the coil, putting hot or cold air into the room as needed. This particular one is in the assessor's office and behind Kelly's desk, and it is rusted out to the point where you can't run it half the time. We have to shut it off and block it off. So it has to be completely replaced. And while we're replacing it, the piping isn't really ideal. It's on the wrong side of a valve out there. So in the wintertime, you can't use it because we drain the chiller out there because it's water and it'll freeze. So they're going to replumb it while they have it apart, put it on the other side so it can run no matter what the season is and be a big improvement there. But yeah, it's definitely, you got to have them. And this one is part of the 1950s section of the building. So it's done.
Yes.
Will this make the heat and air more consistent building wide?
No, not building wide, just in that office, yeah.
Yeah, no, it is like walking through different climates.
Sure, yeah, each
Yeah,
office has its
going
own
to
thermostat and different amounts of these fan coil units, so it'll help. in the
And
assessment.
different tolerances.
That too.
Yeah.
Some like it a little warmer, some like it a little hotter.
Yeah.
Or a little cooler, I should say.
Very true.
But, okay. Teresa?
Councilwoman Flood?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Morelli?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wallace?
Yes.
Supervisor Barry?
Yes.
Resolution number 238 of 2022, a resolution awarding the construction contract for paving of certain trails in the Oaks and Mill Creek subdivision pursuant to competitive bid.
Second. So this will complete this trail section through this area of town. We did receive a county grant for at least a portion of the cost. We did have a nice list of bidders, which was good to see. So at least we can be confident that although the price might be higher than we would have received in maybe a few years ago, that it is a good competitive price. Anything you want to add here, Ken?
Yes, sir, I talked with Mr. Best on Friday, and he can absolutely get this done this year. There was some question with that, with some of the bidders, but he foresees no problem getting this done. He's gonna get after it right away if I give him a call tomorrow if this is approved. So he's gonna start lining everything up, smaller trucks and whatnot, and we trimmed a bunch of the branches back and stuff already in preparation for whatever he was doing it. So we should be seeing some action here pretty quickly.
Good. Yeah, it'll be a welcomed upgrade for folks in that area because the trails are heavily used. So.
Year round.
Yeah. All right, discussion. Teresa?
Councilwoman Flood?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Morelli? Councilwoman Wallowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Barry?
Yes. Any other business to come before the board? Public privilege. Hi, how are you?
How are you?
Come on up. How you doing tonight?
Doing awesome, how are you?
Good.
Hi everybody, Darlene McGraw. I live at 4 North Point. I wanted to speak. I spoke numerous times and to the board before about having a committee or a group of us to be able to speak to the board about disability. You know, how to make the town more disability accessible and friendly and stuff. And I would like the town board members to try to come and try to start maybe making that a reality. So I would like to see if maybe that could actually become like a reality and not just, you know, thought wave anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still hearing from other town residents that they're having some security issues within parts of the town over by like the Moe Road neighborhoods and south of here, south of Grooms Road, between the town hall, Crescent, Moe Road, and Fisher Ferry, and those neighborhoods, all in that area, and surrounding neighborhoods, that there's people that I think that they're saying are kids that are slashing tires, etc. So I would like the town and the board to try to work with not just town security, but the sheriff's department a little bit more on trying to find out who these people are and trying to find out like what are these people that are doing it. If they're kids, what are they doing? Why are they out so early in the morning? If you're kids, what the heck are you doing out at 2 o'clock in the morning?
That's a great question.
You know, because if I was a parent, I wouldn't have my child be out at 2 something in the morning because I'd be scared for their freaking life. I mean, I would be scared for their life,
Yeah. No,
especially in this day and age.
Yeah.
I mean, when the lights are out, you know, you're not to be too far away from the house. I mean, but I mean, no, those are just some of the topics, and you know, some of the other town residents have came and wanted to have that spoken up. And I wanted
Yeah,
to,
well, we don't
Speak up.
know that they're kids. You mentioned kids. We don't know that it's quote unquote kids, doing that mischief.
I'll have to
Well, but I'll
confirm more
say-
about it because it's, some of this stuff might have been on like Ring cameras and stuff like that. I'll have to go back on some of the stuff and find out more about, ask these individuals more about what they know and who they, like any evidence that they might have of whether they have it on videotape or what they have.
Alright.
So I'll have to get some more information from those people.
Great.
So,
Yeah, like I said, we don't know that it's quote unquote kids doing it. Although I will say this time of year, there's usually an increase in mischief in different areas. This is something that we're not accustomed to. This is not the type of mischief that you would normally encounter. But when you read what's going on in some of the other area communities involving cars, it's scary. I mean, it's just some
and people,
really
please lock your
senseless-
cars up. Don't leave them unlocked. Lock them up. It doesn't matter if you're going to be gone for a second or two. Just
Yeah,
lock.
but I was reading other, municipalities, bricks through the windows
Yeah,
and things
bricks.
like that. In past years, there's been many instances over the years of unlocked cars and unlocked cars being entered and things being taken. But this is certainly a far cry from that.
And like
This is much
what
more
Dennis was
aggressive.
saying though, how little things can mean so much. These people, they might have their cars, their tires got slashed or whatever. Well, now they can't get to work. We have basically very little to no public transportation here. So now how are they gonna get to work? Now they gotta pay all their bills. Now they can't pay their bills because they can't get to and from work. They can't bring their kids to childcare. It's all a little, something so little turns into a giant snowball.
Well, like many things nowadays, tires are extremely expensive. If anybody has purchased tires recently, they're much more expensive than they were a couple of years ago.
But Dennis made a good point though. When you lose one thing, that one little thing can turn into a giant snowball
Oh, yeah.
effect.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. All right, very good.
Motion to adjourn.
Councilwoman Flood?
Yes.
Councilwoman Stanback?
Yes.
Councilman Morales?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wallace?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes, thank you.